Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch Break with the Rabbi pre-Shabbat discussion of what we're going to talk about today, today's weekly Torah reading. Good Shabbos, and hope your day is well. This week's Torah reading is named Korach. Korach was a Levite. He was a cousin of Moses. He was a very wealthy man. The Talmud discusses his wealth, that he needed 90 donkeys just to carry his keys. That's how wealthy he was. His keys had to be made out of material instead of metal because of his wealth. He was a very affluent, learned scholar, and he decides to make a coup against Moses, the leader of the generation. The Torah then goes on to tell us his failed attempt to make the coup. Though he gathered many people, 250 of the Levites decided to say that they want to be Kohanim. He also got a fellow by the name of Omempeles and so on. However, as we know, the ground opened up and swallowed them all inside, and thereby coming to the demise of Korach and his faction. The Torah then continues to tell us about an episode where the Jewish people were still hesitant about the appointments of Moses, while some wanted to suggest that this was coming from the nepotism of Moses. And as Moses was trying to disregard that concept, God wanted that it should be proven once again that Aaron's choice, or Moses' choice of Aaron to be the high priest, was a godly decision, a divine decision. And thereby he is told to take a staff, and every tribe would contribute one staff. That staff will then be placed in the Holy Temple, in the Holy of Holies. And in the next day, they will see that the staff of Aaron, which was placed in the center, sprouted with almonds, signifying and symbolizing that Aaron was the choice that was given of God. Eventually, that staff was then placed in the Holy of Holies for millennia to know as a sign of the choices of Moses were not on his own, but were all made by God. So over here, we read stories of the Torah. We read about episodes, and as we know, the name of the Torah reading is Korach. All the stories that are in this week's Torah reading must have some correlation and deeper meaning. But it's not just the story of the past, as we've mentioned many times. The word Torah means Hayra, means a lesson. So what is the lesson that the Torah is teaching us with the story of Korach, and then by continuation, the story of Aaron's staff? And I think if we look at the stories together and the fact that they're juxtaposed together, means that there's a common denominator and a theme that the Torah is teaching us here. And over here, when we look at the story of Korach, there's one unique thing that also points out. There were two troublemakers at the time whose name was Dasan and Aviram. These fellows, Dasan and Aviram, in fact, the Talmud says whenever you see two people, when it says the terminology, people standing in opposition, who was the opposition? It was Dasan and Aviram. Dasan and Aviram were troublemakers already back in Egypt. When Moses saw the two fighting with one another, Moses said, "Why are you guys fighting?" And they came back and said, "Who are you to tell us what to do? Are you going to kill us like you killed that Egyptian?" And they were the ones that told Pharaoh about Moses. Dasan and Aviram are the same ones who complained, who when Moses said nobody should go out and put manna out on Shabbos, they went and put manna out to try to undermine Moses. And over here again, Dasan and Aviram are standing to rebel and in the coup against Moses. And they come along and they say, "Moses, who are you to tell us what to do? What makes you a leader? Who made you the leader?" Again, questioning the authority of Moses. When God sees what happens, he tells the Jewish people, stay away from these evil people. Stay away from the tent of Korach. Stay away from all his faction, as you will watch a miraculous event happen. And indeed, a miraculous event happened as the ground opened up and they all sunk into the ground. But there's one interesting episode we see. After God tells Moses, tell everybody to step away from the tents of these evil people, Moses again goes to Dasan and Aviram, trying to persuade them to come back from what they've done wrong. Over here, the Talmud says we learn from this, never give up on your enemies. What does this mean? What was Moshe doing? Why didn't Moshe just come to peace and say, these guys of Dasan and Aviram, they were evil people. They were troublemakers from day one, and that's it. Just make peace at war. Realize that these are your enemies. This is your opposition, and let God deal with it. Why does he continuously go to them even though they're looking at his demise? Even though they continue to oppose him, regardless of what he says, they will be there to oppose him. And over here we see the greatness of Moses. Where Moses was such a leader that the Torah told us in last week's Torah reading, he was the most humble of all people. Moses was a person who realized that regardless of what that person thinks of me, I have to try to make peace with them. Regardless of what that person suggests or wants to fight, I will find a way to try to bring them closer. Therefore, the Talmud says you learn from this, from here, we don't give up on our enemies. Because Moses was the type of leader that even Korach or even Dasan and Aviram, who they were the most evil of all time against him, his greatest opposition, regardless of what he did, they were opposing him. He'd still in all look to see, to maybe inspire them, bring them to repentance, that they shouldn't come to their demise. Which brings us to the next step of talking of the different staffs that were brought and placed in the Holy Temple, in the tabernacle, to see who was the one that was chosen by God. Every single one of those staffs, every single tribe leader had to bring. But the Torah uses a terminology for the staff. Mate Aaron, the staff of Aaron. Now the word mate is made up of three letters, mem, tes, and hey, which can mean mate, a staff, mate, a tribe, but also mita, which means a bed. What's the difference between a bed and a staff? A staff is vertical while a bed is horizontal. What is the true meaning of a leader? Why was Aaron the leader of all the Jewish people, the high priest? What was his unique quality that Moses and Aaron shared? Was that they were a leader, that they were a staff, they were able to lead the people, a tribe, and bring them through down the land bring them through the 40 years of the desert, take them out of the land of Egypt. But at the same time, they were also able to be a mita, they were able to be horizontal, they were able to bend down and help another Jew in time of need. The true meaning of a true leader is not a person who considers himself in high places, but who has the ability to teach the greatest scholar and the most simple of all people. It tells us about Moshiach, that he's going to be a Rav and a Nasi. He's going to Melech. He's going to be a rabbi, a teacher, and a king. A king that will be able to be above and beyond and keep the lead the Jewish people, but at the same time, a teacher who will be able to lead them and teach every single person at their level. The beauty and the uniqueness of Moses and Aaron, Moses was able to relate even to people who opposed him at Dasan and Aviram and try to bring them closer to Judaism, try to bring them closer to God, take them out of their disgruntled feeling of their necessity to be able to hate and teach them to love. And Aaron was a person who loved every single person, regardless of what level they were on. He was able to stoop down. As the very famous saying, you're never as great as when you stoop down to help a child. The greatest thing that Aaron was able to do was to help a person regardless of who they were. And that was the true symbolism of a leader. It is not by coincidence that we read the Parshas Korach, and in fact, that the year that the Rebbe, the Gimel Tammuz happened 26 years ago, was Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night of Parshas Korach. The time when we read about what it means to be a leader. The time when we read about where the first coup on a Jewish leader, where what was Korach's complaint? Why do we need a leader? We're all holy. Over here, it teaches us what a true leader means. You may be holy, but what does it mean to be a Jewish person, to be a Jewish leader, is to be able to stand upright and tall and strong in principles of Judaism, to be a staff, to stand up for your principles, but at the same time to be a mita, to lie down horizontal and go down and help the person in need. To realize that though there are enemies against us, there are people that might hate you, but to embrace them and to see how you can embrace them as well and bring them closer, just like Moses did to Dasan and Aviram. As we see, it actually had an effect. The children of Korach, the Talmud tells us, ultimately repented. The children of Korach said, Moshe emes v'seirasei emes. Moshe is true and his Torah is true. And they survived the debacle and the demise of their father, because they came to recognize the divinity that existed in the true uniqueness of this absolute leader. This is a lesson for us as well in every time and every age. We have leaders. We ourselves need to be leaders. leaders in our own family, leaders in ourselves, teaching us that we have the ability and we have the responsibility for every single person. There is no person too small and no person too great for us to love and cherish and educate. We need to teach them lovingly and happily and educate them to be able to understand and appreciate, cultivate the relationship with God. By each one of us, looking at ourselves, not too trivial, not looking at a person down, but even embracing them and trying to help them and bring them to their proper spot. We will then ultimately cultivate the world with the coming of Mashiach, may it be now. Amen. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Looking forward to celebrating with you all. Good Shabbos.